In 1956, a young songwriter with a severe stutter walked into a Nashville publishing house. The receptionist almost turned him away. 20 years later, that same stuttering songwriter owned the building. Mel Tillis didn't just overcome his speech impediment, he turned it into his greatest asset and built one of country music's largest business empires. Here's how he did it. Most people know that Mel Tillis wrote over 1,000 songs recorded by country music's biggest stars. They remember him as the charming entertainer who could barely get a sentence out when speaking, but sang flawlessly on stage. What they don't know is that every stutter, every joke about his impediment was carefully calculated to build an empire that would revolutionize the Nashville music business. Long before he became a millionaire businessman, Lonnie Melvin Tillis was just a skinny kid from Tampa, Florida, fighting to get the words out. His stutter developed at age 3 after a bout with malaria, left him with what doctors called spasmodic dysphemia. In school, other kids would mock him mercilessly, but young Mel discovered something remarkable. When he sang, the stutter disappeared completely. By his teenage years, Tillis had learned to use humor to deflect attention from his speech impediment. "I found out that if I laughed about it first," he'd later say, "other people would laugh with me instead of at me." This early lesson in turning a weakness into strength would become the foundation of his entire business strategy. After a stint in the Air Force, where he served as a baker in Okinawa, Tillis returned home with dreams of making it in country music. But unlike most aspiring stars who headed to Nashville with hopes of performing, Mel had a different plan. He understood something fundamental about the music business that would give him an edge. The real money wasn't in singing songs, it was in owning them. Growing up in the strawberry fields of Dover, Florida, where his father worked as a mill hand, Tillis learned the value of hard work early. His mother, a baker and music lover, filled their modest home with gospel songs and old country records. Despite their tight finances, she scraped together enough money to buy him a used guitar when he was 16, unknowingly setting in motion events that would transform the country music industry. What made Tillis different from other aspiring musicians was his analytical mind. While working at the Atlantic Coastline Railroad, he spent his free time studying the business side of music. He'd pore over Billboard magazines, tracking which songwriters were consistently charting, which publishing companies were growing, and most importantly, who owned what. This methodical approach would later become his secret weapon in Nashville. But before Mel Tillis could build his empire, he'd have to convince Nashville's power players to look past his stutter and see his potential. The way he did it would change the music industry forever. When Mel Tillis arrived in Nashville in 1956, Music Row was still a collection of old houses converted into recording studios and publishing offices. Unlike today's sleek business district, it was a place where deals were made on handshakes and songs were bought for $50. But Tillis saw something others didn't, an industry ripe for transformation. His first stop was Tree Publishing, where he met Wesley Rose, one of the most powerful men in country music. Despite Tillis's severe stutter, Rose saw something in the young songwriter and offered him a job as a song plugger for $35 a week. What Rose didn't realize was that he had just hired the man who would eventually become his biggest competitor. Tillis's breakthrough came when Webb Pierce, one of country music's biggest stars, recorded his song "I'm Tired." The song shot up the charts, and suddenly, Nashville's power players started paying attention to the stuttering songwriter. But it wasn't just the song's success that caught their eye. It was how Tillis handled himself in business meetings. He developed a unique strategy during pitch sessions. When presenting a song, he would deliberately stutter more than usual at first, causing executives to lower their expectations. Then, he'd deliver a flawless pitch about the song's commercial potential, complete with market analysis and profit projections. The contrast was so striking that it left a lasting impression. By 1960, Tillis had written hits for multiple artists, including Ray Price, Brenda Lee, and Bobby Bare. But he wasn't content just being a successful songwriter. During meetings, he paid close attention to how publishing deals were structured. He noticed that while songwriters earned pennies per record, publishers were making dollars. More importantly, he saw that publishing companies owned the rights to songs forever. It was during this time that Tillis began implementing his master plan. With every hit song, he negotiated for a small percentage of the publishing rights instead of a flat fee. Most publishers agreed, thinking they were getting a bargain. What they didn't realize was that Tillis was slowly building his own catalog, one song at a time. What set Tillis apart from other songwriters wasn't just his business acumen, it was his understanding of relationships. He knew every receptionist's name, remembered publishers' children's birthdays, and never missed an opportunity to help other struggling songwriters. This network would prove invaluable as he built his empire. During these early years, Tillis also studied the publishing contracts of his peers. He discovered that many successful songwriters had signed away their rights without understanding the long-term implications. He vowed never to make the same mistake. Instead, he began inserting clauses in his contracts that would allow him to reclaim his publishing rights after a certain period. His reputation for being both talented and trustworthy grew. Even competitors who initially dismissed him because of his stutter began seeking his advice on song valuations and publishing deals. What they didn't realize was that every consultation was giving Tillis deeper insight into the industry's inner workings. But while Tillis was quietly accumulating publishing rights, he made a discovery that would multiply his success exponentially. He realized his stutter, long considered his greatest weakness, could become his greatest marketing tool. The way he transformed this impediment into a multi-million-dollar brand would become a masterclass in entertainment business strategy. By the mid-1960s, Mel Tillis had established himself as one of Nashville's most successful songwriters. But it was his decision to step into the spotlight that would transform him from a behind-the-scenes player into a multimedia empire builder. And it all started with a simple observation at the Grand Ole Opry. One night, while introducing one of his songs, Tillis's stutter drew unexpected laughs from the audience. Instead of feeling embarrassed, he saw an opportunity. He noticed that after the laughter, the audience paid more attention to his performance and remembered him long after the show. In an industry crowded with talented performers, Tillis had found his unique selling proposition. He began carefully crafting his public persona around his speech impediment. In interviews, he'd intentionally stutter on punchlines, turning potential awkward moments into comedy gold. On television shows, he'd play up the contrast between his stuttering speech and his smooth singing voice. What audiences didn't realize was that every spontaneous moment was meticulously planned. I don't stutter when I sing because I'm not Mel Tillis when I sing, he would tell reporters, delivering a perfectly crafted soundbite that would be repeated in newspapers across the country. This duality, the stuttering speaker and the smooth singer, made him memorable in a way that pure musical talent never could. Television producers quickly caught on. Throughout the 1970s, Tillis became a regular on primetime variety shows, including Glenn Campbell's Good Time Hour and The Dean Martin Show. Each appearance was carefully negotiated to ensure his stutter remained central to his character. He even turned down roles that didn't allow him to incorporate his speech impediment into the performance. But Tillis wasn't just building a performance career, he was building a brand. He understood that his stutter made him relatable to millions of Americans who felt different or struggled with their own challenges. He received thousands of letters from people with speech impediments, thanking him for giving them confidence. Each letter reinforced what Tillis already knew. His greatest perceived weakness had become his greatest marketing asset. This public persona also served another purpose. It made his business competitors underestimate him. While entertainment executives were laughing at his jokes, Tillis was quietly analyzing their business models, identifying opportunities, and planning his next moves. With his public image carefully crafted and his songwriting business thriving, Tillis was ready to make his boldest moves yet. His next series of business decisions would shock Nashville and create an entertainment empire that few could have imagined. By the mid-1970s, while other country stars were focused solely on their next hit record, Mel Tillis was orchestrating a business expansion that would revolutionize the industry. His first major move shocked Nashville. He bought Cedarwood Publishing Company, one of Music Row's most prestigious publishing houses, for $1.2 million in 1975. It was the same company that had once rejected his songs. But Tillis wasn't just buying a publishing company, he was buying leverage. Cedarwood owned the rights to thousands of songs, including many country standards. This acquisition gave him unprecedented negotiating power with record labels and radio stations. When a station wanted to play a hit song from Cedarwood's catalog, they'd often have to play a new Mel Tillis record too. While his competitors were spending their money on flashy cars and expensive tours, Tillis was reinvesting his earnings into real estate along Music Row. He understood something fundamental about Nashville. They weren't making any more land in the heart of the music industry. By the early 1980s, he owned multiple buildings in the district, collecting rent from the same companies that had once turned him away. His business empire expanded beyond Nashville. In Branson, Missouri, he saw an opportunity that others missed. While many viewed Branson as a sleepy tourist town, Tillis recognized it as an untapped market for country music fans. He built the Mel Tillis Theater in 1990, one of the first major venues in what would become an entertainment mecca. The theater gave him something crucial: control over his own performance venue and a steady stream of revenue that didn't depend on record sales. But perhaps his most brilliant business move was how he structured his enterprises. He created separate companies for his publishing, real estate, performance venues, and merchandising operations. This not only protected his assets, but also allowed him to leverage each business to support the others. When he performed at his theater, he was paying rent to himself, selling his own merchandise, and performing songs he owned the rights to, creating multiple revenue streams from a single performance. He also invested heavily in talent development, signing young songwriters to his publishing companies and mentoring them in both creativity and business. Many of these writers would go on to become major forces in country music, further extending Tillis's influence in the industry. What made Tillis's empire unique was his hands-on approach to every aspect of the business. Unlike other stars who hired managers to handle their affairs, Tillis reviewed every contract, attended every major meeting, and personally approved every significant decision. His stutter might have made these meetings take longer, but it also gave him time to carefully consider each deal. His business philosophy was simple but effective: own everything you can, control what you can own, and never let anyone else determine your value. This approach led him to create his own booking agency, handling not only his own appearances, but those of other artists as well. By controlling the booking, he could ensure prime performance slots and negotiate better terms. By the late 1980s, Tillis's empire included publishing companies, recording studios, real estate holdings, theaters, restaurants, and even a bus rental company that serviced touring musicians. Each business was strategically chosen to complement the others, creating a self-sustaining ecosystem within the country music industry. While Tillis was building his business empire, he never stopped doing what had started it all: writing songs. In fact, his approach to songwriting would prove just as revolutionary as his business strategies, creating a system that would generate hits with assembly line efficiency. While most people saw songwriting as a purely creative endeavor, Mel Tillis approached it with the same systematic efficiency he brought to his business ventures. He transformed his songwriting process into what Nashville insiders called the hit factory, producing over 1,000 songs recorded by major artists, with more than 600 becoming chart successes. His method was revolutionary for its time. Instead of waiting for inspiration, Tillis treated songwriting like a regular job, maintaining strict office hours in his writing room at Cedarwood Publishing. He'd arrive every morning at 9 a.m., armed with a notebook full of titles, phrases, and story ideas he'd collected from conversations and observations. This disciplined approach ensured a steady stream of new material. But what truly set Tillis apart was his collaborative approach. He established one of Nashville's first systematic co-writing programs, partnering experienced songwriters with newcomers. This not only produced more songs, but also trained the next generation of hit writers. The system was simple but effective: morning sessions for crafting lyrics, afternoon sessions for melodies, and evening sessions for refinement. His biggest hits reflected this methodical approach. Ruby, Don't Take Your Love to Town, recorded by Kenny Rogers, came from a newspaper article about a disabled veteran. Detroit City, recorded by Bobby Bare, was crafted from stories Tillis heard from Southern workers in northern factories. Each song was carefully structured to maximize its commercial potential while maintaining emotional authenticity. Tillis also pioneered the concept of song banking, keeping a reserve of finished songs categorized by style, theme, and potential artists. When a publisher or record label needed a specific type of song, Tillis could deliver multiple options immediately. This business-like efficiency made him the go-to songwriter for many of country music's biggest stars. His writing room became legendary in Nashville. The walls were covered with charts tracking song placements, royalty earnings, and market trends. He maintained detailed records of which types of songs were successful with which artists, using this data to inform future writing sessions. This analytical approach to creativity was unprecedented in country music. Perhaps most impressively, Tillis developed a unique system for testing songs before pitching them. He would perform new material at small venues, carefully noting audience reactions. Songs that consistently generated strong responses were prioritized for major artist pitches. Those that didn't were either reworked or shelved. This systematic approach to songwriting, combined with his business empire, cemented Tillis's position as one of country music's most influential figures. But his impact on the industry went far beyond hit songs and smart investments. The way he transformed the business of country music would influence generations to come. When Mel Tillis passed away in 2017, he left behind more than just a catalog of hit songs and successful businesses. He had fundamentally changed how the country music industry operated, creating a blueprint that artists still follow today. His influence can be seen in modern country music's biggest stars. Garth Brooks, Kenny Chesney, and Toby Keith all followed Tillis's example of building entertainment empires beyond just music. Like Tillis, they understood that true success in the industry meant owning and controlling multiple revenue streams. When Taylor Swift fought for ownership of her masters, she was following a path Tillis had blazed decades earlier. The Mel Tillis Theater in Branson became the model for artist-owned venues across the country. Today, venues like Blake Shelton's Old Red Restaurants and Dierks Bentley's Whiskey Row demonstrate how modern country stars have adopted Tillis's strategy of combining entertainment, real estate, and branding. But perhaps his most lasting legacy was showing that perceived weaknesses could become strengths. His stutter, which many thought would prevent him from having any career in entertainment, became the cornerstone of his public persona. This lesson resonated far beyond the music industry. He received countless letters from people with disabilities who were inspired by his success, and he quietly helped many of them pursue their dreams. The Mel Tillis Foundation, established in 1985, continues his work today. The foundation provides support for speech and hearing-impaired children, funds music education programs, and offers scholarships to aspiring songwriters. It's a testament to Tillis's belief that success meant nothing if it wasn't shared with others. His business innovations continue to influence Nashville. The systematic approach he brought to songwriting is now standard practice in Music Row's writing rooms. His model of vertical integration, controlling everything from song publishing to performance venues, has become the gold standard for artists looking to build lasting careers in country music. In his final years, Tillis remained active in the industry he helped shape. Even after selling Cedarwood Publishing for a reported $65 million in 1983, he continued mentoring young artists and songwriters. He often told them, "Don't let anyone tell you what you can't do. Just figure out a different way to do it." As we look back at Mel Tillis's remarkable journey from a stuttering boy in Florida to one of country music's most successful businessmen, one thing becomes clear. His greatest talent wasn't his singing or even his songwriting. It was his ability to see opportunities where others saw obstacles.